Mike Rodriguez versus Ed Herman is a fight going down this Saturday that you ought to pay some attention to. It's a sleeper fight on this card that should definitely be getting more attention than it's been getting. Ed Herman deserves everybody's respect. He has achieved something in the sport that might be the absolute hardest thing to accomplish outside of winning a UFC championship title, and that's achieving true longevity in the sport. It's something a very small percentage of the individuals who enter MMA will ever do, and it should definitely get some appreciation. A lot of people don't realize that when Herman was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 2 in 2005, he was considered to be the most experienced guy in the house with a record of 13-3. He had just come off a win over former UFC middleweight champion Dave Mene, and he also held a win over a very highly touted light heavyweight Brazilian who was unable to get into the UFC at the time because of visa issues, named Glover Teixeira. And that was by 2005. Can you imagine? While he made it to the finale, he didn't win in the fight against Kendall Grove, but it mattered very little because what followed was a 14-year-long career with the UFC that's still going very strong. It's not just that it's going strong by virtue of him still being there, but because after 17 years of professional competition, most of which he was taking on the very best talent in the world, Herman is on the cusp of a 3-fight win streak if he can get past Mike Rodriguez. But that's a lot easier said than done, as Rodriguez is a very dangerous fight for a guy like Herman. And the reason I say that he's a dangerous fight for a guy like Herman is because Short Fuse is the type of fighter that will very willingly play the very dangerous game of striking for all 15 minutes of the contest if he has to. And many who are willing to stand and exchange blows with Rodriguez is assuming a very high risk of getting hurt. The thing that I personally love about Rodriguez is that he's very confident in his Muay Thai skills. And anybody who knows even the very basic fundamentals of striking will find him very entertaining because he does not mind stringing together 4- and 5-piece combinations and taking the risks that come along with doing that in MMA. Any openings available he is actively pursuing, and he has long limbs, great technique, and big power. He's the type of fighter that doesn't just finish fights, but hurts people in the process. Just look at his last fight that took place a couple weeks ago when he put a violent end to it just a couple minutes into the contest. The guy has a history of ending fights within the first round, which is a valuable attribute to have as a fighter, and it's not something that's lost on his opponents. Which is why I think that if you pit a guy like that against Ed Herman, who's riding a 2-fight win streak, and no doubt a whole lot of confidence going into this, it's going to make for a long, drawn-out banger, or a quick end to someone's night. No matter what the outcome is, it has all the markings to be a fun one. There was also the cool revelation that came earlier this week when Rodriguez told Cage Side Press's own Joe McDonough that he watched the entirety of Tough Season 2 with his friend right up to the finale when he was in high school. And he talked about how much of a fan of Herman his friend was. And that really struck a chord with me personally because when he said it, it reminded me that I also watched that entire season with a friend of mine in high school and remember being a huge fan of Herman at the time. I can't imagine what it must be like being a kid in high school and all these years later, you're getting ready to fight the very man you watched on TV in 2005 in your parents' basement. It's a subtle added element of intrigue to this fight. I spoke with Rodriguez last year when he was in South Korea just a couple days before he fought Da Un Jung, and he was telling me that he doesn't study tape on his opponents or pay any attention to what they do, and that he just focuses on what he's going to do and leaves the rest up to his coaches. But he's obviously going to know a thing or two about the man he's fighting on Saturday night, and I'd imagine that given the situation, it'll provide him with a bit more motivation and pep in his step than he'd otherwise not have. As for Herman, he always sort of came across as unaffected by outside factors in terms of how they relate to his performance. The guy's been fighting in the UFC for 14 years. He's done and seen it all, so there isn't going to be much that can be thrown at him that's going to get him off his game. He isn't scared or worried about a damn thing, and it's that very quality that's enabled him to turn out entertaining fights for so many years now. So this Saturday, make sure you tune in. Rodriguez versus Herman is money.